Open the council meeting for the 24th of August. Taki, would you like to lead us in our karakia? Thank you. Okay, so obviously we're being live streamed, so you need to use your microphones. Apologies this morning, I have Councillor Hayward and Councillor Nalo. Can I move that? Seconded by Councillor Trillin. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. We've got no public requests this morning. Any conflicts of interest from anyone? Nope. We'll move to the confirmation of the minutes from the 20th of July. I will move that. Seconded by Councillor Duncan. Sorry. Any issues with those from anyone? Councillor, are we happy?
I don't have any issues, but I did note in the secretarial note on page 8, it said that it was going to be withdrawn into the council meeting on the 17th of August. Actually, it should be the 24th. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Noted.
you,
he will change that. Thank you. Okay. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. So that comes to my mayor's report. Obviously the months are flying by. We've come to the end of the FIFA World Cup, so we can congratulate Spain and Palmerston North for hosting them. I went to the Hut Rec to watch Para Plum versus Oriental Rongotai in the Jubilee Cup. Obviously it wasn't their day, but it was great to make the finals. Phil and I attended the Tawa College production, which I have to say we really enjoyed. It was a musical this year. We attended the South African versus Sweden game, where Sweden won. The train trip was enjoyable in the end after my complaint to Darren on the phone, and they put buses on. So I think GW got their act together and it went really well, so it was a good month for them. Wendy, Nick, Kylie, Nathan, Kathleen, Tracy and I attended the local government conference in Christchurch, which was all very informative, and Nick took some really good notes if anyone wants them, or you can just have a chat to us. Wendy and I went to the Wellington Regional Mayor's tour of the Boxham site down there because they are looking for a site in Wellington region to set up, which was quite interesting. I've been going to the Tokomanawa Queens games at the arena. They're second on the table at the moment, and the semi-finals and the finals are going to be held at the arena. So if you want to watch women's basketball, check it out and get some tickets. I joined the We Love You clean-up in Cannons Creek around the lakes, and I have to say I was shocked at the amount of rubbish that the church group got out of the surrounding bush and lands. It was absolutely amazing, and they do a great job. Every year they come out and do one site in Porirua. As patron of the Porirua Little Theatre, I went to the Shop of Horrors. I have to say they had it in their little hall in Tite Bay. It was really good. Thoroughly enjoyed it. We celebrated Cook Island Language Week, which was another good week. And then Kylie and I attended the Ngāti Toa Kaumatoa meeting with Taku, which was a really good way to catch up with the locals and see if we had any issues. Obviously, I've had my hand surgery. I'm juggling to type, and I've got chauffeurs, obviously. Phil, Kylie and Ross called into me last weekend, seeing Phil went somewhere else. So thanks, Ross and Ursula, for chauffeuring me. Polyfest was held at the arena to a sold-out crowd, and I was told that went really well. We had a community planting in Whitby along Duck Creek. I popped down because it was 2 days after my surgery and had a look, and they had a fantastic turnout for 400 plants, and they did that really quickly. We've celebrated the Rotary Leadership School Awards with Izzy and Kylie emceeing. Another great event every year. Citizenship, we had another 55 people sworn in. I spoke at the Whitby Women's Institute about what's hot and what's not at council. That was an interesting session. Joined Partners Porirua at Aotea College and Mana College, following up on our youth discussions. So we'll continue to visit the schools on that. Jeff and I attended the opening of the Porirua Multicultural Group and their new offices in Hartham Place. I spoke at the Parramatta Residents Association AGM last week with a general discussion on what's going on at council. We had the Regional Mayoral Forum here in the Chambers last week, which went really well, and we even finished early, so everyone was very happy. I helped unveil the new Rotary seat and the tree planting at Plymouth Domain on Saturday, and I know that Taku will speak to the other event that happened on Saturday. I did a site visit to Silverbrook to see the development in its final stages, so that's looking really good. And of course we had the Gold Awards last night, which was a thoroughly enjoyable night, and for me, as a board member of Tora, they picked up the team award, so that was a great night. The Sport of Innovation won the Supreme Award, and Liz Mellish took out the icon, so it was quite a good evening. So Taku, how about you update us?
2/3 of those meetings I managed to get along to as well. But there were two highlights so far this month. One was the bill being passed to support the Wānanga o Raukawa and Te Awa Nui Arangi and Te Wānanga o Aotearoa about changing some policies around enabling them to make their own sort of governance decisions without interference by government. It was really good. And also the additional activity I went to is the unveiling of the seat up on the hill there. Has anyone been to see it yet or sat in it?
We drove past it.
You drove past it, okay.
On Sunday, had a look.
Crashed into it, did you?
No.
And it was interesting too because the rugby union was there and some members of the community. But Tamati Allison spoke. He was the sort of ex-All Black from Porirua. We tried to get hold of TJ. They couldn't make it, and the rest already left to go overseas. But Tamati spoke quite emotionally about his ancestry that's connected to Porirua, like Tom Allison, who was the first Māori lawyer, and he introduced the black jersey for the All Blacks in the silver fern, and he was in the first All Black team to tour overseas for a long, long time. And then on both sides, his grandfather, Bill Bevan, was All Black as well. And his cousin, Reece Allison, won 3 NFL, American football rings. And, and so he was quite emotional about his connection and his grandparents buried up on the hill over here at Takapawahia. And I think the comments that were mooted later on was that he was the appropriate young man.
Oh, that's good.
To conclude this ceremony. And that really kept off a really good month. Thank you.
Oh, sorry to miss that. Thank you. Okay, we'll move to our committee recommendations. Councillor Trillin, I'll ask you to do that.
Thank you, Mayor Baker. I'll move that Council adopts the committee recommendations of Te Puna Kōrero from the 17th of August 2023.
Seconder, Councillor Ford. Any questions for anyone? Yes, Councillor Duncan.
Just in the notes there, it says Ross was the chair, but he wasn't.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson.
I just wanted to ask after the hours of the 30 speed limit in the CBD, there was some discussion about extending that, and I just wondered.
Yes, I see they haven't moved it to 8. It still sits at 9.
Yeah,
they said they would be flexible, but they're not here. So they will be flexible? Yes.
Can the minutes reflect?
Do we need to say that?
As chair, you can move.
I can. Yeah, well, I would like to move that it sticks back to 8 o'clock as discussed. And Councillor Ford's happy to second that because she
As the original.
yeah. Okay. Anyone else? No? You happy with that? Yeah. Okay. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Do I need to move that as well? No. Okay. Our first up, committee recommendations reports 11.1, Wellington Regional Leadership Committee, the Future Development Strategy and Update. I'm going to move it to put it on the table, seconded by Councillor Leggett. Oh, do you guys want to speak to it, or do you want anyone to speak to it, councillors? It's pretty standard. You'd like them to speak to it? Kathleen, you do? Yes, Kathleen would like you to speak to it. Sorry.
Kia ora. My name's Rory Smedden. I'm a principal policy planner in the district plans team. as you just pointed out, this is quite a straightforward paper. So I was only intending to be very brief, but I thought it would also be a good opportunity to introduce the new manager of the District Plans team, Helen Orr. Yes, and we've also got Kim Kelly here today if you did have any more detailed questions to ask. So my intention was really just to provide a very brief overview, but I think I'll just speak, very briefly that the future development strategy is a requirement under the National Policy Statement of Urban Development, and it's been developed under the Wellington Regional Leadership Committee. We've already discussed it with you previously, so we've gone through that in quite some detail. I'll take the paper as read, and I think, if the only other thing which I think was going to be quite important to point out was that PCC will be represented on the subcommittee, so there will be that representation on there, and as well as on the Wellington Regional Leadership Committee, which will eventually sign off the end document. So as you've already pointed out, it's quite a straightforward paper, so I think we can just move to questions.
We'll take questions anyway. Anyone got any questions from you? No? I'd like to move my chair's recommendation as well, which was to appoint Councillor Ross Leggett to be a member of the joint subcommittee for the purpose of the hearings for the draft future development strategy or any updates and making recommendations on those submissions to the future Wellington Leadership Group. I have to say, he even though he's deputy, he's been selected because you'll need a bit of time off, and people who work were not suitable, because it could run for a few weeks. And it's in December, so Russ really got the short straw there. So I will move all those recommendations. Oh, no, Josh, I've moved. Oh, you want to, yep. I just moved it as one. Was that all right? Yep. Okay, so all those in favour? All those against, carried. Thank you. There you go, Kim, you're out the door. 11.2, local government elections debrief and election matters update. So I'm going to move that to put on the table, seconded by Councillor Trillin. Anyone want to speak to this, or have we just got questions? Anyone? Yes, Councillor Duncan.
So I want to move that we go back to FPP. Because I think that STV's not served Porirua well. It's been a disincentive to every man and every woman voter, and at best it's gerrymandering. Since Porirua adopted it, our voter turnouts dived from 43% to 37%. And I think the complexity of STV is the main reason for that. In an ideal world, it may well work. But the problem is it presupposes a level of understanding of the system that just doesn't exist. The playing field's not level, and STV has simply served to discourage many from voting. A key feature of STV is the quota system. So how many electors do you think actually understand how that quota system works? How many councillors actually understand how it works? Voting should not be the preserve of academics, those with higher education, higher levels of literacy or understanding, or even English as their first language. Voting should be a simple process that everyone who's entitled to vote can do so with ease and be confident that when they put their mark alongside a person's name, that mark is counted accordingly. So here's an illustration. I've got a very good friend who's a local resident. As I was out and about during the election campaign, I met up with him in the street, and he was fulsome in his praise for my work on council, just saying.
Well done.
And he said to me, so I've given you 10 votes. He'd put 10 alongside my name on the voting paper.
Oh,
so I had to tell him, I'm sorry, but your vote's wasted. And the interesting thing is those who actually promote STV say that it stops votes from being wasted. Well, there you go. The DIA website tells us that counting STV votes is so complex that it's beyond human comprehension and has to be done by a computer. That's on their website, it tells you that. The website goes on to explain how FPP and STV work. It takes 22 words to explain FPP. It takes 11 paragraphs, 46 lines, and a number of graphics to explain how STV works. Honestly, let's stop complicating things. Let's keep it simple, stupid. And for God's sake, go back to FPP.
Well, do you have a seconder for your motion? Councillor Ford does. Okay, so it is on the table, so we're going to speak to this motion first. So I have Josh first up.
Thank you very much, Mayor Baker. First of all, I'd like to start just by saying I'm disappointed that Councillor Duncan has so little faith in Porirua voters being able to count from 1 to 10. I think STV is a very straightforward system. We've had it in for a long period of time. And one of the things that I will note is that Porirua City Council has been successful since before my time in making sure we have a diverse range of voices around the table. And I think STV is a very important part of that. We know that FPP systems on average are less representative. They tend to produce councils that look less like the community and more like dominant demographics. That means you get a council that is on average older, more male dominated, and less representative of the range of ethnic and cultural groups present in our community. And we know that Porirua is a genuine melting pot. It's a representation of all of New Zealand. And we do a really good job at making sure that all of those voices are heard around the table. And I think that's one of the key things that makes sure that we're able to govern in a really good way. People are used to STV now, and if we don't want people to be confused, I think the worst thing we could do is go flipping the system on them that they've gotten used to over a period of time. So I actually think it's very important that we stay with STV. I think it's been very successful, and I think it's something which we can be proud of, and we should actually be encouraging other councils to follow in our lead in terms of what we've been able to achieve and the representation that we have around the table. So I will be voting against this amendment.
I'll let you speak now, Mike. Yes.
That would be wonderful if there was more than 37% for the population actually voting. But they don't. They don't vote because they don't understand how the system works. Out of 78 councils around the country, only 15 have adopted STV. The others have stayed with first past the post, and there's a reason for that. It's so that everybody gets an opportunity to vote.
Okay. Anybody else speaking to this? Councillor Leggett.
I just want to say I agree with Josh and Mike. There's no evidence that there's a causal relationship between the drop in voter turnout and STV.
Thank you. I also, I'm sorry, do not support and agree. So, Councillor Ford?
Just as the seconder, I seconded it because there is a certain element of what Mike is saying that is true in our community. So I hear you saying, as in Josh and Ross, around that there's no data, but there is data. There's 61% of our community that is not voting, and it's because that is what I'm hearing on the ground too. Is it's too complicated in terms of our Pacific people who don't understand the ranking. So I'm hearing what you're saying is how can you not have faith in our people understanding the voting system? But in actual fact, the reality is that they don't, a big portion of our community doesn't understand it and are more likely not to vote. So that, if you're saying there's no data in it, if we look at the national voting turnout, where it is not STV, it is a simple voting system compared to what we have at the moment where there's a rank. You want to look at the data, there is the data there. It's simplified for our people to understand. So that's why I seconded going to say the mayor, sorry, Mike's motion. Okay, cool. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor, are we happy?
Thank you. No one likes a fence sitter, but I guess here I am because I can actually see both. I can see both sides of the story. But I don't know if we can put down the STV versus FPP. Yeah, FPP as the reason for a low voter turnout. In fact, at the general elections, you have ballot booths. You can go on the day and you can go and vote, and that's all about the experience. With the local body elections, that's not an option. Okay, so people don't care. They get in the letterbox. Who opens up their mail these days anyway? Who even goes to the letterbox? Getting email. So I actually think it's the whole system and the process that is the issue here, and not the STV versus FPP. So I won't be supporting your amendment, Councillor Duncan, purely because I think that is not the way to fix our voter turnout.
Councillor Philo?
Good morning. So I've got two things. I believe, I'm not sure if it was in these papers, but I read somewhere around they were comparing down south two areas, one that did, they were doing both systems. Was that in these papers? And there wasn't much of a difference though, was there, with the two systems? So that's sort of true. What I was hoping is, and maybe Jack could answer this, would you mind just sort of explaining how as Councillor Trillin, sorry Josh, as Councillor Trillin said, how does that system actually allow for diverse representation? Is that okay? Like how does it versus the?
What's the difference?
Yeah, what's the difference with? Yeah. Well, with the diverse representation and that.
Yeah, so the academic studies quoted in the report outlines that because the district magnitude is bigger, voters can vote for more than one candidate, and it means that you don't have to strategically vote, so you don't have to rank or tick candidates which in order to get them elected. So it means that you can give your 1 to someone, and then even if they get knocked out, your 2 goes to someone else. And so, yeah, it's about building consensus around who is the most favourable candidates.
Okay, so it just allows for more choice.
Yep.
Right.
Councillor Johnson?
I think I particularly agree with what Kylie's raised in that this isn't so much about STV or FPP, but rather the system as a whole and the confusion around that. And I think Mike, within his comments about being pro FPP, raises some good points, as does Izzy next to me. I'm just wondering if we can, I'll be supporting STV, but I'm wondering if there's an opportunity for us to look at more of the process around that to enable people to have a better understanding. And I think my curiosity comes from the fact when we were talking about central government voting, and is there anything we can do to process that and make it simpler for our community? I think also Dunedin, perhaps, while it's a good example, we've got to think about our own community here in Porirua and what works. Thank you.
Prior to each election, we do canvass the options with council about how we can improve voter turnout. I would point out that the entire Western world is experiencing a drop in voter turnout no matter which system that they use. So it's a wee bit of a hard battle because we've got quite a lot of, diminishing of trust in public institutions generally. People can't see the point. What's often said to me about local government is that there's a whole lot of candidates and people don't know most of them, and so that's a bit of a mystery for people too. So I think it is important that as each election looms, we kind of try and unpack some of that, and we've certainly had drop off voting boxes at more locations, supermarkets and stuff. So we've tried different things. We had a bus one year. It didn't turn out to be the most successful idea we've ever had, but they're all worth trying, aren't they? And certainly you people who knock on doors and go out and get yourselves elected have a good idea about what is working for people and what isn't. So we'll certainly, as we come up to the next election, be talking to the council about what things you think will be helpful.
I'll allow you, Councillor Ford.
No, it was just the Deputy Mayor raised something which I think we've had this conversation as well around a voter day. That seems like something that would be out of our control, would be something that would be controlled elsewhere.
right.
But
Yeah, technically there is a voter day, so the
mail in by that day.
Yeah, but because we are the postal voting regime is not set by us; it's set by central government. So we are committed to that as long as they are committed to it. And I don't think local government elections have been a priority really for consideration, but it's probably worth us lobbying about some of those things because postal voting is clearly on its way out, and there's no appetite for digital voting right now.
I will bring it up at the local government review panel I'm on.
Cool, thanks.
As it goes through. Councillor Waddle.
Yeah, I think I'm the last person
You are.
to speak, so I suppose I better say something. It was just interesting to note, I looked at just out of interest, the mayoral election in Hutt City, where there was 32,000 votes. There were 888 blank voting papers. Like, FPP is a simple system. Simply tick a box, but 888 people failed to do that. Comparatively in Porirua, there was 15,000 votes for mayor, and there were 400 blank voting papers. So comparatively, there's a similar number of people just putting it in an envelope and chucking it in the letterbox. But interesting to note that we're talking about this because FPP in the LGNZ survey was the preferred method, but the most overwhelming method of casting your vote was digital voting, and yet there's no appetite for it. So, it's all just statistics, really. I will not be supporting your motion, Mike. I think STV gets us a good representation across the city.
Okay, thank you. So there's no more speakers. Nope. So I'll put Mike's motion about first past the post. So all those in favour of that? Councillor Ford, Councillor Duncan, all those against? So sorry, that is not carried. So we move to our first motion. We go back and I'll put the original motion. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you. I'm going to move, we go into public excluded, seconded by Councillor Weehappy. I'd ask all the officers and staff to leave the room, please, for this one thing. You can come back in shortly. So it was all those in favour? Yeah. All those against? Carried.